what up, Long Beach? Welcome back to the one and only place to talk Long Beach sports. It is GazetteSports.com and the Press Telegram, another episode of LBST, where we love moments in the clutch, as long as they're not happening on deadline. As always, I am co-sports editor JJ Fiddler, to my left.
Co-sports editor Mike Gardabasio, and I even like the stuff that happens on deadline. To my left,
Tyler Hendrickson, just trying to figure out what the heck's going on with the weather. But we got to give a shout out to our air-conditioned sponsors, Naples Rib Company down on 2nd Street on Naples Island, and on the other side of 2nd Street, Papalucci's, where you can go down and get yourself a nice meatball sub. That's my suggestion of the week.
This is the local sports talk show every week where you come to find out what's happening this weekend. And as always, early on in the fall, it's high school football first and foremost. We've got some games on Thursday and then a nice docket of games on Friday. Last week, looking back here just for a second, Thursday night and Friday night both included incredible finishes at Narbonne and at Bellflower High School between Mayfair and Gar. But Poly was clearly the story with that incredible game-winning drive led by Mr. McDonald. And Nolan really did something that I've talked about a lot, performing in the clutch. I think a lot of times we talk about the clutch, but we're not really talking about just that final play or that final moment. It's really what you've done all week long to prepare yourself for the fourth quarter when everyone's tired and you found the matchups and you found the mismatches and you know where you want to attack. You need to be at your top of your game and not nervous or scared, ready for that spotlight. Some kids have it and some kids don't. I think you can teach it to a certain extent. You have to have the ability, but moments in the clutch, man, we had some really good ones last week.
well, you and I have talked about the clutch thing a lot, and I would argue, like, Nolan McDonald's a perfect example. I don't really believe in, they talk about the clutch gene. I don't necessarily believe in that. I believe in preparing really well so that even when it's a high-pressure moment, you don't feel pressured.
So you don't have to think about the clutch gene.
Right, exactly. But so to me, being clutch is more the absence of being nervous or afraid, and that is exactly who Nolan McDonald is, not just in the last 2 minutes of a game, but sort of in his whole life. And I think you hear that just as clearly when asking him about Malik Henry transferring in as you do in seeing him play the game. Because think about what this kid's last month has been like. He was supposed to be in a battle with Tavaka Tuioti for the starting quarterback spot. Tavaka transfers out. Suddenly Nolan and the other quarterback transfers out. So suddenly Nolan's now the only quarterback in the program basically at all. Then here comes a 5-star, and suddenly now you're competing with a guy that by ranking you can't really compete with. So it's a real whiplash there. Then he has kind of a struggles his first game out in Arizona. He gets blasted on Twitter. I mean, in the way that only Poly football fans can really be unfair to high school athletes, this kid got blasted by students, by adults, like, when's Malik eligible? Can we put Malik in at halftime? Blah, 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 blah,
It's
blah.
like turning a faucet on. They just wait all summer for that first game, and then every time the offense underperforms in the first game, whoosh.
Right, exactly. And so then and then he comes into this Narbonne game. It wasn't his best game. He looked certainly better than in Arizona. And then that final 2 minutes, I really think he made a name for himself, because suddenly now everyone's cheering for him. They're chanting his name. He's walking around Poly, on Friday, the day after the game. Everyone loves him. He's the winning quarterback, all that stuff. So quite a week for that guy. And you could say his clutch gene helped him to get there. I would say his presence of personality and how calm he is sort of rode the wave out and allowed him to not sort of freak out about all the criticism.
Well, his brother talked about dreaming about moments like that. It is almost like that. I know it sounds kind of corny, but you look at a guy like Phil Jackson who taught visualization throughout his career, and he's pretty good.
He's got the rangs to back it up. But I think talking about the clutch thing, I don't think you're necessarily adding anything in those clutch moments where you're just like, oh, I'm stepping my game up. You're just not losing your ability to perform because you're scared of the spotlight or you're nervous. It's just doing what you do and being so focused on playing the game that when everybody else gets sort of caught up in the moment or tries to do more than they should, you can just stay nice and steady and then make the read, run up the middle. Because those are runs he's been making the entire game against Narbonne. It's just maybe someone didn't, hold contain. They were running up the field. And so you take advantage of other people trying to do too much because they get caught up in the clock and the scoreboard.
Well, that's the other thing the clutch conversation always bothers me is so if a quarterback does a designed bootleg and his right tackle doesn't block and he gets tackled, he's not clutch. You know what I mean? Like, it focuses everything on one person when really what we love about sports is the way it's a team sport, the way that everyone functions together. And again, like Sean McGrew, you could say he's a clutch running back, but you could also say he's got a great offensive line and he's really fast, which he does every day he works on his speed. So it's
I
kind
think
of a
both are
6 of
true.
one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah, both are true. I think the Mayfair-Gar game is a perfect example of that. Two teams who are obviously very closely matched, and you've got a Mayfair team that's both new, first-year head coach Derek Bedell, and old, third-year starter at quarterback in Isaiah Jackson. You just said it. The offensive line was the reason that team was able to stay calm, run the ball, get into scoring position. But when Isaiah Jackson rolled back, made his one read, and hit Joe Emsley with a perfect pass on a touchdown, I looked at him and just said to myself, that's 3 years of experience right there. He didn't grip up, he clutched up. But you look at a team like St. John Bosco, do they really need the experience of playing close games? They might go the majority of their season without getting a chance to play a one-score game in the fourth quarter. They might do it this week, but if they don't, do you think that really affects them down the stretch? Because I don't, and there's a pretty good example of that.
Well, you go back 2 years ago when they won a national championship and they steamrolled everybody. I mean, they had a running clock.
Everybody!
I mean, they had a running clock in the semifinal of the Pac-5.
Ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. So they didn't really get that week in, week out challenge to see, like, oh, can we come through in the clutch moments? The state championship game against De La Salle, that was certainly close. It was a one-score game, and, you know, I remember a long run for Josh Rosen towards the end of that game that you can say, you know, he had that ability, but that was his third year starting at quarterback, so he'd been in those moments, and obviously a very cerebral guy that is having a little bit of success in college right now. I don't know if you guys have heard about that or not. But yeah, I don't know that you really necessarily need a team to be clutch or practiced in the hard-nosed, grinded-out type games in the fourth quarter, because if they just spank everybody, they just spank everybody.
But isn't being clutch not messing up in that moment? Wasn't Bosco being clutch by not fumbling the ball twice in the fourth quarter against De La Salle? Even though they hadn't had that practice, by not messing up, it's like, well, that was a clutch performance.
So to me, again, that's not clutch. That's just your
good.
It's your preparation just sort of taking over. I think you sort of agree that's where the whole clutch thing comes from. But to me, again, it's like, did Josh Rosen need to be clutch on Saturday for UCLA, or did they just blow the other team out because he was so good for the whole game? You know what I mean? We talked about this.
Yeah,
with
I don't think we
LeBron.
found out yet.
Right, because like with LeBron, it's but to me, again, it's sort of
You can't say right now that you know for sure when Josh Rosen gets into a fourth quarter tight game, maybe on the road in a Pac-12 Thursday night game or something. You can't say right now that based on his ability, he will perform well that night. He will be clutch that night. You can't say that, but you can say I believe that he's prepared enough to perform.
What I believe is
but you'll never know.
What I believe is that his ability, the ability of his and effort of his teammates, and other random variables like weather and the other team will affect what happens. Not some like magic clutch term that like we talked about this with LeBron. Like people like to. LeBron scores 40, 15, and 9 in a playoff game that his team loses, and people go like, "Oh, LeBron wasn't clutch." It's like, well, okay.
Using the LeBron example always makes me angry because people are so ridiculously unrealistic.
But it's sort of the same thing.
I
guess the issue I have with the clutch conversation, I don't feel like most people know enough about sports to really have it, because you're essentially throwing out blowouts. You're essentially throwing out blowout losses, and you're saying, well, all I care about is the most important is the star player in the close game. And
so you're talking about soccer.
Realistically, you're talking about like 5% of games.
Well,
you know
soccer in a nutshell is being able to perform like you've always performed in the most clutch of moments.
I will say this about Josh Rosen, going quickly back to that example. If he does get into a pressure late game, fourth quarter moment for UCLA, he's more likely to succeed in that moment because he played the Fog Bowl against Poly as a sophomore and has that
I totally
this
agree.
is the craziest moment.
Yeah.
Everything's working against you. It's so much pressure. And so it's experience and it's hard work, and I think Josh Rosen definitely has both of those things.
Quick check in the rankings. The Long Beach area rising in the CIF polls as we move in week 2 of football. St. Anthony, number 3 in the East Valley division. Obviously, plenty of teams in the Pac-5. That would be Bosco has moved up to number 2. Poly is up from number 6 to number 4.
Yeah, that coveted top 4 spot.
Yeah, so you have to sit in the top 4, certainly, if you want one of the nice seating positions for the playoffs. Valley Christian up in Cerritos has moved into the rankings. Very
how about
nice.
Them Crusaders?
They're ranked number 9 in their division. And down in the West Valley division, Los Alamitos moves up from number 6 to that all-important number 4 that we mentioned by virtue of their win over Paramount. And, of course, there is the Press Telegram division, which is sort of our name for the Southeast Division, where we've got Downey at number 4, Dominguez at number 5, and La Mirada at number 7. Paramount at number 9, with Mayfair just outside the top 10 also getting votes.
Let's get to the schedule. Thursday night back at Veterans Memorial Stadium for the second week in the row. It's the Los Alamitos Griffins hosting Lakewood.
Double dip!
Fascinating matchup here that we love. We love these local matchups. Mountain View is going to play Glenn at La Mirada also on Thursday. Meanwhile, Warren will travel to Buena Park. But we've got our eyes on Friday. Some great games coming up.
It's Friday! Yeah, we're going to check out the Milliken Rams. They're 2-0. They put up a bunch of points under new head coach Derwin Henderson, running that Corona Centennial-style offense. They're going to host Mission Hills. It's going to be a challenging game. Mission Hills is big up front, so the Rams are going to have to work to control that line of scrimmage. It's going to be a test, but we're going to know just how good those Rams are.
Also, kind of a double dip at Clark Field, where the St. Anthony Saints are going to be hosting the Wilson Bruins. Double dip in our Gazette's world that we live in. Two local Long Beach schools who are not in the same league. The Saints made it to the semifinal last year. They're going up in division to play the Bruins. Bruins beat the Saints last year, but then had to give that win back due to forfeit. So Bruins kind of have some unfinished business. But the Saints want to shock the world and beat the Bruins for the first time since 1987.
And our game of the week actually is out of state, but the best game we've got going on in the area, nationally ranked St. John Bosco traveling to Oregon, where they're going to face the defending Oregon State champion Central Catholic. That game's on ESPNU, which is why I'm comfortable saying it's the game of the week. It will be televised live nationally. I've got my DVR set. We'll throw that thing on while we're working on our videos after the games, but that should be a good one. Central Catholic kind of tripped coming out of the gate a little bit last week, but obviously still a very good team with a big line up front.
How does Coach Negro and the Braves feel about traveling? It's kind of old hat for them. I know they've done it 3 years in a row now.
They had the itinerary all set last Friday. Do you know what I mean? It was like, okay, this we're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we're traveling. We're going to practice at Nike World Headquarters. The game is this time on Friday. Here's when the walkthrough is. Bada boom, bada bing. You know what I mean? It was very sort of like, okay, we know what we're doing here.
With the nationalization of high school football specifically, are we looking at a situation where these big football teams are going to have to go out of state and beat somebody who can call themselves a quote-unquote state champion in order to be in the running for that mythical national championship at the end of the year?
Oh, I would absolutely say so, and I think it's even more extreme than that with like basketball and volleyball and you know, I mean,
but those are tournaments. You can go to tournaments and play a couple or handful of good quality teams in Florida and Texas or whatever.
But I think football is sort of morphing along with that now, where you see if you look at Max Preps' top 10 national rankings, I think every team in there is playing an out-of-state game. They might not necessarily be traveling out of state, but everyone's playing like a top team, and Bosco is not even done yet. Arguably, their next trip that they're taking out of state is even bigger than this one. So
another Pac-5 team coming into the area. Alamany is going to be at Downey. The Vikings coming off of a loss at Hart without Darian Franklin, who will not be playing in this game. The Oregon-bound linebacker slash just matchup nightmare when he plays offense. The Vikings dropped from their number one ranking down to 4, as we talked about, so trying to rebound and show a better performance. A tough early season schedule for them, but as we know, Jack Williams and company definitely playing for a postseason run, and they will still be one of the best teams in the SGVL again.
Back at Paramount are the Pirates after losing to Los Al, but they want to get right against the Jordan Panthers, their second game in the opening 3 weeks of this season against a more League Pac-5 opponent. They handled the Bruins pretty well. Let's see what the Pirates can do against the Panthers.
Well, and staying with that SGVL, we always know it's a kind of a 3-horse race, to be honest with you. Dominguez in the Compton City Championship game at Compton at 5 p.m., and it's going to be a lot of running the ball and winging it up because Jason Miller and Calvin Bryant are going to keep that bunched in. It's going to be easy to film that game, but Dominguez looking very good in J-Town last week, and considering how well they played against Olu, the Dons look legit this season so far.
That game is going to be at 5 p.m. if you're going out to Compton to see them taking on the Dons. Avalon, if you're out on Catalina, is hosting Faith Baptist as they try and keep it going.
Cabrillo, if you're on Avalon, are you going to a football game or are you just hanging out?
Those are heavy community events out there. They do love those games. Cabrillo, coming off of 2 very tough non-league games, plays Villa Park, while Artesia is going to travel to Pasadena trying to get a win.
Bellflower are going to be on the road as well. They're going to be at Yorba Linda High School to take on Esperanza, and another double-dip game, Cerritos at Gar, the losers of that close matchup against Mayfair last week. I mean, Gar was this close to tying that game, but what are we talking about in the clutch? It's the little things. They got called for illegal procedure on what would have been the game-tying touchdown with less than a minute left.
Out to the burbs, La Mirada did not get enough of the Trinity League as they're going to host Mater Dei, another tough game for the Matadores. Also in the burbs, Mayfair at Bellflower High School. You already about it. They are hosting Sonora as they try to move to 3-0 on the season.
Norwalk will be hosting Bell Gardens at Excelsior Adult School. The Lancers kind of licking their wounds coming off that big loss to St. John Bosco. And I will actually be at the Linwood City Championship Firebaugh at the new improved field at Linwood. That should be a big one. They've kind of turned that into a rivalry series between the city's only two high schools. That should be fun.
We mentioned Valley Christian. They are at home hosting Ocean View, trying to stay undefeated and in that top 10 in their division.
And are you down with RDP? Yeah, you know me, the Lobos at Marquez at 7 p.m. And that will round out the Friday, September 11th action.
Apple B, bold predictions, NFL season starting this weekend. I'm going to get going. I'm going to predict that 1 year from today, Roger Goodell will be out of work.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Actually, he won't be out of work. He'll be making $900,000 a minute as part of a consultant firm. But he won't be the NFL commissioner anymore, and I'll be very happy to see that happen.
He will not be protecting the shield. I do like that.
Which he never has done.
Actually, it's also true.
Which is not necessary in the first place.
Or maybe protect it in a incorrect manner.
Okay, I'll do one. If we're going a year, okay, by the time the next NFL season starts, Robert Griffin III will not be a Redskin.
Ooh.
Nor will anyone else.
Wait. Oh, I like it. I like it.
Boom.
I'd say before the end of this season, somebody's going to get caught cheating. I'm not saying it's going to be the Patriots, but everybody's eyes and ears are open right now. Somebody's going to get caught doing something dumb. And most people will go, that's not that big a deal. But it's the NFL going, we're going to get one of these right.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's a matter of statistics.
The problem is always with teams where the NFL is so mad at the Patriots that they slap the Browns over the head is that the Patriots don't get caught doing stuff that's dumb. The Browns are going to get caught like, oh, we can just send one of our ball boys to the other side of the field and on speakerphone to stand next to the coach. Let's try that.
Oh, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns going to be over 500 this year. How about them apples?
I'm also going to say the Cleveland Browns will be top 5 in the NFL in rushing yards.
Whoa!
Behind
Bubba
Batonio!
That's right. Wilson's Joel Batonio. That's why I have Isaiah Crowell in our fantasy league, because I think he's going to eat up. Dreadhead is ready to rumble.
My final bold prediction is that Alden Darby of Milliken and Arizona State fame is going to get signed to someone's practice squad after an injury, and we will have 6 different Moore League schools with a guy drawing an NFL paycheck because Deion Bailey is going to be starting at safety for the Seahawks. He's from Lakewood. John Timu just made the Bears. He's from Jordan.
Bears.
We got a couple different poly guys: Mercedes Lewis, Jarrell Casey, Deshaun Jackson, Jameez Olawale, Dayton Jones from Compton, starter on the D-line for Green Bay, and we already mentioned Joel Batonio from Wilson. So if Darby gets in from Milliken, Cabrillo would be the only Moore League team who doesn't have an NFL guy, because right now we've got 5 of the 7, which is the same as the Trinity League. I doubt there's any league in the country with more schools than that in their league that have an NFL guy currently in the league. Pretty impressive.
And the Chargers are going to win the AFC West.
Cute.
That's it. That's all. There ain't no more. Another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk is in the books. Thank you to everyone at the Press-Telegram and the Gazette newspapers who help us give you all of this local sports coverage and, of course, this show each and every week. For Mike, for Tyler, for JJ, we're going to see y'all in the stands this weekend for some more high school football.
AFC West is an old wooden ship.
Take care, y'all.
AFC west of Colorado.
Peace.
Say bye.
Bye.